everybody, to another episode of Planet New Jersey. My name is Vinnie Civitillo alongside my co-host, Randy Stevens. Randy, say hi. Let the audience hear your voice.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for being with us.
Awesome, awesome. We're going to get started with an icebreaker in just a second, but first I want to introduce our sponsor and our guest today, John Koufos from Cottage Four. John, say hi.
Good to be with you. How are you?
Oh, excellent. I can't complain. All right, John, today we're actually recording this, let's say mid to late December, but by the time people hear it, it's going to be January. It's going to be time for New Year's resolutions. I wanted to ask, has anybody, like, when was the last time anybody made one? Have you made a New Year's resolution pretty recently? Is that like a quaint concept?
I think it's something we strive for in life, but I certainly haven't made any because I'm honest enough to know that I'm not going to be able to complete it.
There you go.
I like it. John, I think I might adapt that myself. It's funny. I was thinking about going to the gym the other day, and I drove past the parking lot. I'm like, looks like the gym is more full now. You know, kind of setting the trend for New Year's. Everybody starts that stuff. But if we all accept the fact that we're probably not going to keep it, I'm going to adopt that.
That's right. And then if we do keep it, it's a positive.
It's a plus.
There you go. I mean, it's funny, like the standard, like I don't want to call it cop out, but the standard New Year's resolution is I'm going to lose like however much weight. And like you said, like the gym gets a lot busier from like January, February, March, whatever. I have actually avoided going to the gym for years because by the time I think about it, like it's not even like a New Year's resolution kind of thing, but I'm always thinking about it like November, December, January, February. And I'm like, no, I can't be one of those people that shows up and then everybody just judges you for, maybe like being a New Year's resolution. So I just don't go. And then like, I'm not thinking about it in like June or July or whatever. I know it's awful.
Yeah, well, what do they say, right? Summer bodies are made in winter.
Maybe that's why I'm thinking about, like, everybody is thinking about it that time of year. I don't know.
Or all holiday eating, probably, right? People packing on the
Probably.
pounds of sweets, and then it's like, all right, what am I going to do now? So yeah,
The bulk of
you're
my
not alone.
exercise is going out walking, and I can tell you it was 15 degrees yesterday. Like I have no desire to go out and walk,
No.
So yeah. Well, John, I'd actually love it if you could tell us a little bit about Cottage Four. I know when I say Cottage Four, an entirely different kind of business model comes to mind than what Cottage Four is all about. So let's hear it. Tell us all about it.
Sure. So it's a consulting firm, right?
Yeah.
And
I
what
hear
we do
cottage,
is
and I think it's something totally different.
right. Well, I'll tell you the story how I picked the
Sure.
name. Maybe
Nice.
by the end of the thing. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't tell everybody, but so we're a consulting firm that I think we help a lot of folks interface with the federal government. I have worked with this administration extensively and the last administration as well. And we specialize in a lot of think regulated professions, right? Help a lot of health insurance companies, secure business, big tech, healthcare. And my passion is, of course, justice solutions, right? How do we make a better justice system? That's not always a business model because a lot of that's free work I do,
Yeah.
but it's what I'm most passionate about. And it leads you into some interesting verticals because you realize that the more no matter what you're doing, the justice system seems to touch it, right? If
Wow.
you're a housing advocate, you want to build housing, you may have people who have justice involvement. Workforce is the big one. I've helped presidents and governors figure out second chance hiring, for example, around the country.
I did want to ask about that. So you have an awesome story, that leads into that, but talk about, your recidivism efforts.
Sure. So I was really lucky to work for former Governor Jim McGreevey at the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. I was the first executive director there. And that program, for those that don't know, is really one of the premier in the country. And Governor McGreevey has grown it to even greater heights than we had ever imagined. And what it does is it helps people with criminal records, typically out of some form of incarceration, get jobs. For me, this was a professional passion, number one, in helping people and really helping businesses source talent. One
Mm.
thing in this country, we have, well, I don't believe we actually have a labor shortage in this country. What we have is a second chance shortage. And that
Wow.
second chance shortage can be filled. And places like New Jersey Reentry, and that's what I did when I was full time in New Jersey, we would try to fix that. And interestingly enough, businesses started to realize that, like, if you need talent, right, there are only so many places to go. And if you exclude people with criminal records, you're excluding something like 25% of the entire labor market. Now, by the way, I upset, my criminal justice advocate friends because I don't take the position that businesses should hire just anyone with a criminal record, right? This is not charity. It's business, right? The idea is what I encourage businesses to do is to look at this as a unique talent pool, right? And if the best candidate just so happens to have a criminal record and that record doesn't affect what your business model is,
Sure, sure.
give them a chance. And you actually, all the studies from the Society of Human Resources Management and other major research think tanks have shown that there's better retention for people with criminal records. They get promoted faster. With turnover costs being less, it saves the company a lot of money. Now, the other part of that story is how to get interested in it in the first
Yeah.
place, right? And I think that is a simple Google search, can figure that out. Because as you know, I've been blessed in a lot of ways. And one of the things I tell people is that the best days of my life, both professionally and personally, happened after I went to prison, right?
Wow.
So what happened is about 14 years ago, 15 years ago, I was a different man. I was leading a law firm, but a completely functional alcoholic. And I was driving drunk one night, hurt somebody in a drunk driving accident, lied about it for about 3 days,
Ah,
4 days, right? Until I cleared up off the bender and then went and turned myself in.
Mm,
Thank the good Lord, the person I hurt lived. Of course,
yeah.
they're always going to have residual pain and issues from being hit by me. But the good Lord saved their life. And for me, that was the beginning of my journey to sobriety. But that journey, Vinny and Randy, had to run squarely through the Department of Corrections. I
wow.
pled guilty at the very first time they would let me plead guilty. I didn't stretch the case out because as I like to say, I tried to make a deal with God. I said, if you'll remove these chains from me, whatever the penalty is, it is. So pled guilty at the first appearance, was sentenced to prison, and was surprisingly paroled. The funny part of my story is that, while today, I've worked with celebrities, I've worked with presidents, governors, right, presidents of both parties, etc. When I when I was in prison, I mean, I didn't know a single politician until I was a felon, right? which I guess in Jersey makes a lot of sense, right? You know what I mean?
Ah, dum.
It's probably right? So I mean, it's too easy. But in Jersey, it makes a lot. But I didn't know anybody, and I was paroled out. And interestingly enough, I experienced a lot of the things, even though at one point in my life, I was this lawyer. In fact, one of the most interesting things in my case, and we had talked about this way back, I think, Vinny, um, was so I was out on bail for my charge, and still argued before the New Jersey Supreme Court for a client. A client, like
Wow.
I said, look, I'm under indictment right now. Are you sure you want me to do this? He goes, yes, yes, you had won the case before. So there I
Like they
am.
said, it's New Jersey, you know.
Hey.
So, so there I am standing before the New Jersey Supreme Court in January of 2012. Tell you how far we're going back, arguing a big, big search and seizure case. Well, I'm out on bail. I know I'm going to plead guilty as soon as they give me a new court date, right? And there I was. So we won that case, by the way, which was good
The
for the
important thing.
client. Yeah, right. So that was like the Barry Bonds asterisk, right? So
Roger Maris, yeah.
right. I set a lot of records, I think, but that's one I'm proud of the win, but not the circumstances.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that it was that experience in prison that showed me something a little bit different, right? Because I think, look, and all the lawyers watching this, and will say all of them were where I was in the sense that they all think they know everything about the system because they're a lawyer, right? As I did, but you realize you don't know much until the door closes in front of you, and at the same time my job as a lawyer, I represented guys murder charges, big cases, right? I wasn't thinking about like how are they going to get a job, how are they going to reintegrate. That wasn't my concern, candidly, right? My job was to try to resolve the case in a manner most favorable to them. So when I go to prison, it was interesting because no one asked me for money. which was good. I was going bankrupt. But nearly everybody asked me for a job, and I was just
Mm.
an inmate, guys. Right? So, and I started to
Do I look
observe.
like I'm hiring right now? Yeah, like-
Right. But it hit me. That was the first time that most of these people were dealing with someone who might have access to a regular market, right? Regular.
Mm,
And I never forgot that. But I also never knew I'd work in reentry. So I get out. I had nowhere to go when they paroled me. I'd lost my home, and at that point, I wasn't married. Now I'm married with two kids, and but at that time, I didn't even know my wife or anything, and had nowhere to go. But an old law school roommate took me in Hoboken, which is not really where a drunk goes to get sober, right? But right. I just want to be honest, right? But there was a lot of great recovery there and just great human beings there. And it was that journey. I had a random reach out to Steve Fulop, who was the mayor of Jersey City. Mayor Fulop connected me with Governor McGreevey, who was doing some county jail ministry and some local reentry stuff. And Governor McGreevey had this vision of a statewide reentry corporation to help people. And I wanted to help people restore their driver's licenses, my old law buddies and stuff like that. And then we ended up building that organization. And that work got me noticed. Well, President Obama first toured our program, right,
Mm.
with our partner Integrity House at Newark, one of the best addiction treatment centers in the state. That work got me noticed down in Washington, D.C. And I got a call from Brooke Rollins, who's now our Secretary of Agriculture. She would become President Trump's Domestic Policy Council, and the team from Koch Industries, who were interested in advancing criminal justice reform, second chance hiring. Um, and they asked me to come to DC to lead a project with them. I did. And then I helped President Trump pass the First Step Act, did a bunch of second chance hiring stuff with the president. Kim Kardashian, met her along the way, and helped governors around the country and businesses figure this issue out. But the interesting thing is that the social determinants of health, so to speak, right? We talk about social determinants of health in my healthcare world. Um, right? It's those things that don't necessarily show up on a blood test that affect your health outcome.
yeah.
Your zip code, for example. That's the same as the social determinants of work. So we realized that if we just started building support structures around appropriate people, right,
Yeah.
we could create job ready candidates, housing, addiction treatment, education, driver's licenses, fines, and fees. So that works. So because of that work, I ended up touching all of these different systems. And like today, for example, at Cottage Four, we have clients who have nothing to do with the justice system at all, right? We have clients who are doing stuff, big providers with Medicaid, insurance companies, et cetera, absolutely nothing to do with the criminal justice system. Then I'm doing a project with Secretary Kennedy at HHS um, to to build better prison healthcare systems, right? So it's this interesting place in our consulting firm where we have the opportunity to help businesses drive value, whether it be in healthcare, in tech, which are our two biggest sectors, infrastructure, and then we have the chance to do good, right? So I can keep my soul grounded where it needs to be and try to live what I think is atonement, right? What I try to do every day is atone, guys, because I can't build a time machine. I can't go back to that day and
And
not hurt anybody. But what I can do is use the platform that God has given me and the access that God has blessed me with to change how things go from this day forward and hopefully prevent tomorrow's victims.
Wow, John. So, John, something in my early career, I was a social worker and I worked in a juvenile detention center. And I like when you mentioned when you were, in the Department of Corrections yourself, folks were asking you for jobs, and I dealt with a similar thing. Like a lot of young kids that I had on in-home detention center monitoring, or even when I was like actually in the facility as a social worker there, when I would see a lot of those kids that got free on the street, they would, hey, Mr. Rand, do you have a job for me? And I didn't have the resources at the time, right, to connect people or send them a refer. But I like something that you mentioned in our pre-production show where you said that you consider yourself a bridge builder, right? Because you're now part of what you're doing is building the bridge from folks who've been on the other side, right, and are now trying to make up for what they've done or at least do right, some way. So I mean, that's very, very interesting to me to hear you kind of even talk about the similar experience and how you're using that now to motivate you in the work that you do.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for your work. I mean, it was a wonderful group of social workers who helped me, as I was in early recovery, right?
Mm.
Without them, I would not be anywhere right now. And the bridge builder thing is actually it's funny. It's a foundation of Cottage Four. I think I made a joke in pre-production where I said, they see me with President Trump, half the people hate me. They see me with Kamala Harris, half the other half
The other
hate me,
half,
right? They see
yeah.
me, they saw Ron DeSantis, some other group hates me, right? So the beauty to be universally hated by all, I think, is uniquely me. But on a serious note,
I'm
that
working on it.
right, that I could write a book on it. That bridge building piece is so important, right? Because good business and good policy equal good results, and it shouldn't matter where it comes from, right? A good idea is a good idea, regardless of who in the government is putting forth that good idea. And a lot of what I had to do, and a lot of our success at Cottage Four has actually been we could trace it back, I think, to the service we do, right? We do things like, for example, there's been all this talk around bail, right? Should we move to a system of bail in this state again that is back to our the cash bail days in New Jersey.
Mm,
Like that would be crazy. Right? And it's not necessarily a cash, no cash question. The question is a risk-based system, right?
mm.
Like if you get arrested federally, you probably don't know this. And give it time, you might get arrested federally at some point, right? So, but if you get arrested federally, cash bail is an option, but it almost never happens, right? Because they have a risk-based system. They look at the person, the offense, the likelihood of conviction, likelihood of flight, and if you're deemed too dangerous, you sit in detention. That's it. A great example is
What
the
if you're
Diddy,
not? Do they just let you go?
and if they don't, you're released with
Okay.
conditions, right?
Okay.
So might be electronic monitoring, might be other conditions. The Diddy case is a great example. No, honestly, if the state of New York charges
They could
Diddy,
tattoo flight risk to his forehead.
right. But New York would have let him out
uh,
because New York's bail system is so weak, right?
uh,
And he would have paid, or he would have paid 45, 50 million bucks and he would have walked out. In the federal system, they could have detained him. In New Jersey, if he got arrested in state New Jersey, they could have detained him, right? So I think those are really exciting. Those are some of the other exciting things we work on, are those kind of issues in the criminal justice movement. But going back to bridge building, one of the things that because of my work with both administrations and particularly my work with the current White House um, has been very beneficial for clients, right? Because there's a lot of businesses who didn't necessarily have those inroads, right? Didn't necessarily know how they were going to navigate this new world, with certain levels of deregulation, right? Different players in the cabinet, et cetera. And our team has been able to help a lot of businesses do that. And I think that's really important. I think one of the hallmarks of like Governor Murphy's success, I think Governor Murphy did a lot of great things in New Jersey. And one of the hallmarks of his success is his ability to work with the people on the other side. He did a great job of working with the White House, during his term. And I think as we enter Governor-elect Sherrill's administration, I think that there's going to be a lot of excitement in the state, hopefully about building businesses, economic development. I think there's a lot of good things coming we have a tough business climate in New Jersey, don't get me wrong, but to the extent there's state federal partnerships, I think that New Jersey is properly positioned there. And that's a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
I think it's great that, like I'm hearing so much hope, like you had
Yeah.
mentioned your best days came after, your incarceration and
Sure.
everything, which is just amazing. Like I think you think about that. Like I think about like the kinds of things people would be thinking about when they're being arrested, when they're being convicted. And you're just thinking like, this is the end for me. And at the same time, you're saying like, no, actually there is hope on the other side. I know you were saying that you work with the inmates themselves on, like the addiction programs and all of that. But I know that there's a lot of barriers on the employer side. So how
Sure.
do you work with them to, like open the door more for these kinds of candidates?
That's a great question. So important for this audience. I spend
Yeah.
most of my time these days on the business side. So, for example, with the help of JP Morgan, I launched a big project in Florida with the Florida Department of Corrections, the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and a great group of researchers at Wellbeing and Equity Innovations. And what we did, we realized that Florida releases a lot of people every year, right? They also have a tremendously hot economy, right? Florida's
Mhm.
economy remains hot no matter what's going on. And you had this situation where there's labor shortages across all sectors. And the business community simply didn't know what to do, right? In Florida, they had assumed they're going to get sued if they hire people with criminal records, right? They're going to tear up the plant, right? They're going to cause trouble. They didn't know what to do, many of them. And then there was this other cohort that had been doing it forever, but really quietly. So, thanks to the leadership at J.P. Morgan, we went down to Florida with the Department of Corrections, and we launched this project, Retaining Talent, and it's purely for businesses, right? We don't. No offense to the candidate side, we're not interested in that, right? Our job is to teach businesses the risk management principles that you need to know if you're going to hire these folks, right? Just the risk management for any other thing you would do. You buy a building, there's a risk management thing. You buy a fleet of trucks, risk management. Same thing. So we teach them what are the risk management liabilities on background checks? What do you have to do? What do you have to look
Mhm.
for? Florida happens to have a tremendously strong negligent hiring protection law for businesses. Businesses have to do very little to get protection for hiring people with criminal records. All they have to do is a background check and make sure they don't put somebody in a job that matches what they're there for. So
Sure.
if you run a pharmacy and the guy's fresh out for drug possession, don't put him next to the Percocet,
Yeah.
right? If he has violence against women, don't let him work in a domestic violence shelter, etc. Right? So it's very, very business friendly, as one would expect in Florida. Nobody knew that, right? We dug it up. We got a big law firm to help us, the Jackson Lewis law firm. And then we started socializing this to businesses with the leadership of the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Now businesses all over the place are like, oh, wait a second, I can do this safely. And now they're going to the wonderful candidate sourcing spots, the New Jersey reentry corporations of their location, right? And they're identifying good candidates. And we did a whole bunch of media collaterals, all these videos we have on the retainingtalent.org website where you can watch me be like the poor man's Anthony Bourdain, like running around Florida with businesses, right? Teaching them how to do this. But the beauty of it, that's where I think the gap is in New Jersey and some other places. And not for any negative reason. It's just a lot of businesses aren't thinking, about this as a primary talent pool. I'll say NJBIA, Michelle Sakirka has always been with us. I met Michelle during my first, back in 15, 16, something like that. And she's always been someone who has socialized this issue to her members. And now you're starting to see it grow. And that's a really exciting part. It's important, though, for businesses to understand also the business incentives that are there for them, right? Your American job centers have a whole array of things for the business, whether it's on the job training dollars, tax credit dollars, employer bonding, right? There's all these different benefits that are sitting there, but there doesn't seem to be a significant amount of translation from the Department of Labor, and this isn't in New Jersey, this is almost every state I go to, from the Department of Labor side to the businesses themselves. And I think that's something that I'm hoping that whoever the new commissioner of labor is going into next year in the Sherrill administration, hopefully they'll tackle that issue because it'll yield tremendous benefits for the business community and the downstream effect of turning people who candidly have been tax drains for a great period of life into tax bases is just wonderful for the state.
And John, when you talk about reentry and second chance programs, right? It makes you obviously it's on the path of workforce development, which is what exactly what you guys are doing down there in DC and abroad. So, I mean, you also mentioned a little bit earlier that you guys do a lot with big tech. So let's talk a little bit about how artificial intelligence, which is right the buzzword, and I think New Jersey at Princeton University, if I'm correct, is developing a hub there. What does that look like in terms of workforce development? And two ways, right? Whether businesses and corporations are embracing it and are ready for it, and then in terms of staffing and finding those folks to fill those positions that are yet available for us.
Sure. And yeah, and you're right. So the New Jersey AI Hub at Princeton is that groundbreaking partnership with CoreWeave, Microsoft, Princeton, of course, and the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And full disclosure, my wife works there for Microsoft. Actually, my
Hey.
wife is the Microsoft liaison to there, so I have a lot of visibility into it, and at the kitchen table and in other places. And but I think that from a this is exactly what has been needed in New Jersey, and other states have done something similar, albeit not with the largesse of a CoreWeave and a Microsoft, really
Gotcha.
driving it business first the way they're doing it. So we have two buckets of things. We have how is the business community going to respond to the AI revolution, right? And there's a few things that need to be done. Businesses have to think about incorporating this into workflows, right? And that's really critical because what we hear as AI is a buzzword, but we it's almost used as a pitch in a pitch deck, right? Like they say, "Oh, sell me this pen" as a joke. It's AI powered, and then all of a sudden, here's $300 million to start your company, right? So I think that right, we need to get away from that and do hard skilling because if we do hard skilling customized to the business community, we're in good shape. So I think that's what we're seeing. So we're starting to see businesses, right, of all sectors say, you know what, in the healthcare sector, right, certain workflows, doctors are spending too much time dictating notes into Cerner or Epic or their electronic health record and not enough time seeing patients, right?
Gotcha.
So AI is synthesizing that for them. But then you need practitioners, right? NPs, doctors, etc., to be skilled to use that the right way. And that's the beauty, I think, of one version of the AI hub, which is their workforce development side. And the other side, of course, is a business incubator. But I think that the downstream effect of this that I don't necessarily see from state to state that I work in is because New Jersey has invested so heavily in this skilling hub, and because we have so many outstanding universities in the state already doing AI training, skilling, incubation, what happens is now you have this force multiplier sitting at Princeton with two giant corporations backing it.
Mm.
And I think that will be its own business development strategy for the state of New Jersey.
You got one, Vinny?
No, I was gonna say we're kind of running out of time, but Randy, if you got one more, go for it.
I do. There's a quote that you mentioned during our pre-production, which you were talking a little bit about, working on both sides of the fence down on the federal level. You said, and I don't know if this was yours or you picked it up from a mentor or book. Maybe you can clarify, but it says, if everyone leaves a negotiation upset, it probably was a good settlement. Like, can you speak on that? And
Sure. So the guy who made it up was from Ocean County, New Jersey. He was a judge, Jim Courtney. Judge Courtney was a civil judge, and I remember as a law clerk, I clerked for a different judge, and Courtney's been long retired now, and that's what he taught me. He said, it's a good settlement if everybody leaves the table upset, right? And I think that I've never forgotten that, especially when we're trying to make sure whether I'm helping clients navigate through DC or navigate a large business deal, right? We can't let perfect be the enemy of the good, I think is where it is. Now, lawyers, of course, are naturally upset people anyway. So I think Courtney might have been, hooking onto that. But it's good to remember if everybody leaves upset, good chance it was a good settlement.
I got you. And Vin, just before you let me go, I've got one more thing. So part of my position at BIA is I'm a relationship manager, right? So building relationships with our members, connecting them to our resources and outside, other businesses as needed and things of that nature. And it's another note I took from our conversation when you said relationships matter, and I guess it's very important as you were talking about earlier, being able to work for people across both sides of the fence and connecting folks from like state levels to the federal levels. Just a little bit about, the importance of relationships that you've learned either, just in your journey overall, John.
Critical. And I think it comes down to, make sure that you are interfacing with people when you don't need them, right? And that's
Mm.
really important. Authentic relationships will carry you farther than anything in this world. I'll give you a really good example. Many people who are watching this, I'm sure, are aware of the Henry Farm situation. The township of Cranberry wanted to take Henry Farm for affordable housing. Now, I'm very pro affordable housing. This was an awful site for affordable housing, and it was a functional farm for like 200 years, right?
Wow.
So, so what happened was we had this situation where Cranberry Township dug in, right? Because they had to adhere to a certain affordable housing law. But in Washington, D.C., my old boss, Secretary Rollins, right, who's now running agriculture, cares about defending farmers, right? And she says, we're not losing a farm to this type of eminent domain, particularly where you have a whole town of places to put stuff, right? I'm summarizing. So this became very tense, if you remember, about 6 months ago, right? Letters were coming from the White House administration or from agriculture threatening New Jersey and right? And and I thought about it and I said, hey, Brooke, why don't we just get everybody in a room, right? Let's just get everybody in a room. Let me call my friends in Jersey and let's bring them down here to meet with you, HUD Secretary Scott Turner, right? We'll get someone from Governor Murphy's administration, Secretary of Agriculture, or Ed Wengren, Commissioner of DCA, Division of Community Affairs, Jackie Suarez. Let's get in a room because everybody wants to save the farm and everybody wants housing. We're just not clicking for some reason. Brooke, one of the best leaders I've ever worked under. Brooke convenes the meeting down in DC. We spend a few hours down there, right? Governor Murphy's team and the cabinet could not have been better and more accommodating. And we left saving the farm, right?
Gotcha.
That is the power of relations. So how do I know this relationship? Brooke, I worked for, Secretary Rollins, right? Worked with Secretary Turner on First Step Back stuff in the first Trump administration when he was using his significant platform as a former NFL player and a faith leader to drive that. Commissioner Suarez, I've known for many, many, many years. And Governor Murphy, I've known him and his team for many years as well. And I think people know that because we don't take every sort of matter at Cottage Four, we don't represent everybody. And so I think when people know if I pick up the phone for something, I deeply believe in it, right? Or it's a really good issue, and hopefully both. And
Gotcha.
I think that's the power of relationships as well, right? Your relationships have to know that when you ask them to step out on a branch for you, right, that you're going to make sure they don't fall. And
Ah,
I've always tried to do that to the people who've helped me out.
I
I
love
like
that.
it. Yeah.
Randy, you got a game for us today?
I do. We're gonna John was kind enough to entertain us with our trivia for the day, for the episode. So I've got four questions for us, right?
Okay,
We're gonna do one Jersey based, right, just to see where we all are for the Garden State. And then I've
sure.
got since this won't air till about New Year's, a couple weeks from recording it today, I've got some New Year's trivia just based off of our world history we can all remember, from our days in the classroom. So we'll start off with Jersey based trivia question for the first one. And it is simply this: New Jersey is the most blank state. Polluted, which is pretty funny, dirty Jersey, racially diverse, financially stable, or densely populated. New Jersey is the most blank state. Polluted state, racially diverse state, financially stable state, or densely populated state.
That I happen to know.
The dirty Jersey was actually, I mean, the polluted was hilarious to me. I'm not gonna lie.
See, that's a little hint there. We're now knowing that it's not polluted.
What do you got, John? You got an answer for us?
I can you see it?
Densely
Yep.
populated. What do you got? Densely
I wrote
populated.
densely populated as
One
well.
for
Although
one,
I
both of you
did think
guys
that we were
great.
pretty racially diverse. I'd be surprised to hear that we're not.
Yeah, actually, well, densely populated is the correct answer. It's the fourth
Yeah.
smallest state by area, but the 11th most populous. So one for one for both of you guys. Great start. Great start. And we'll give you, we'll just do two. So we've got two trivia questions surrounded around the topic of New Year, since this is when this show will air.
Sure.
Uh, what year was the first Times Square ball dropped in New York City? 1907, 1920, 1945. What year was the first Times Square ball drop in New York City? 1907, 1920, 1945. And has anyone ever been to the ball drop? That's something you do on New Year's. Anyone
I
ever
would
been?
rather die.
Neither have
Are you kidding
I.
me?
And it's freezing. I'll tell you, the
Yeah.
closest thing I've ever done when I went to the presidential inauguration this year,
Yeah,
right?
it's
It was
usually.
like 1 degree, and just walking around the security, my wife was in open-toed shoes and a ball
Oh,
gown. I felt like we climbed Mount Everest. We had
was that our
frostbite.
most recent inauguration, John? Because they've
Yes.
been cold history. Yeah, recently. Wow. All
Yeah.
right, what answer you guys got about the ball drop?
N-
1907 for John, 1945 for Vin, and our guest of the hour, Mr. John, is correct at
Ah,
1907.
See, I was thinking maybe
Nice.
like after World War II, they were like, we got to like, get people happy again. Let's do something fun.
They
I
might
don't
have
know.
still been building. They might have still been building,
Yeah.
right?
I
I've
thought it
got
was
one more.
1903, actually. If you would have asked me open-ended, I would
Uh,
have said '03. So I picked the one closest to '03.
Got one more question for you guys, and this is definitely a history question. If you remember our days sitting in those classrooms, right? What ancient civilization is believed to have been the first to celebrate the new year? The Romans, the Babylonians, or the Egyptians? What ancient civilization is believed to have been the first to celebrate the new year? The Romans, the Babylonians, or the Egyptians? I
all
got you.
right.
Like, what do you got, Vin? The
I put the
Romans? What do you got,
Romans
John?
because they came
I
up with the calendar, right?
That's what I
Like,
was thinking too. But
yeah.
but the answer is said to be the Babylonians.
Okay.
uh,
All right.
I
I
picked
see.
the
Vin, I
Romans.
thought the same thing as well.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I picked Romans because of all the Italians we have in New Jersey. So I assume you'd state.
Well,
I thought you were gonna go for like a Jersey answer. I'm like, all right, Rome. It must be that. So
Hey, listen,
if you had
I've
asked
got
that
one
one
more.
open ended, I probably would have said like the Mayans or something. Because whenever
I,
you hear something about the calendar, it's always the Mayans, But yeah,
I was thinking the Egyptian. And you know what? Here, let's throw this bonus one out there just for funs and
sure.
giggles. Which Roman emperor established January 1st as the start of the new year? Augustus, Julius Caesar, or Nero? Which Roman emperor established January 1st as the start of the new year? Augustus, Julius Caesar, or Nero? Augustus from John. What do you got, Vin?
Yeah, I wrote the same thing, Augustus.
And of course, it's Julius Caesar. I think John.
Ah, see, I was thinking like, okay, I thought it might be like. At first, I thought Julius July, but I was like, no, or January. But then I was like, no, Julius had to have been named for July, or vice versa. Like July had to be named for Julius. So I was like, I don't know, it's a trick
Well,
one.
John, you are the winner in relationship building relationships and bridges, and also the New Jersey-based New Jersey trivia show here from Planet New Jersey and NJBIA. So thank you for playing with us, Vin, and I'll kick it over to you, sir.
I love it. I actually usually I have a very softball question for the end. It's just how can people get a hold of you? But I will ask that as well. But first I'd like to ask this because I think it might be a different answer. Let's just say I'm a recent I recently got out of prison and I'm looking to get a job, or I'm an employer looking to find somebody, and I'm willing to reach out to these individuals. Is there a place where I can go, or whether it's online or whatever, to help that process?
Organization, maybe, yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
I think in New Jersey has two of the best, right? So there's the New Jersey Reentry Corporation, which is njreentry.org, right? That's the organization I was blessed to have the opportunity to serve as executive director of many years ago, that Governor McGreevey serves as executive director of and chairman. And the other, of course, is Volunteers of America of the Delaware Valley, which is down in Camden, but covers most of the south part of the state. There are others as well, but those two, and VOA's email address escapes me, but it's VOA of Delaware Valley, and they're in Camden. Um, both of those organizations source tremendous candidates for the business community. I mean, they work hand in hand with employers, right, to make sure that employers are getting the type of employee they're looking for. They both spend a lot of time because they know that it's so hard to get folks to hire this population that they want to make sure that the employer is very, very happy. So you really get sort of white glove service from both of them as an
Wow.
employer.
Oh, I like white
And,
glove service.
yeah, and as a business, if you're paying a headhunter, right, or a staffing agency, you're hemorrhaging money. Nothing, for perhaps the same population. For there, you
Hmm.
do it for free.
Awesome.
Very cool. And how can people get a hold of you if they'd like to take advantage of your services?
Yeah, no, I can be found very easily at Cottage Four, just like it sounds, COTTAGEFOUR.com. And just my email is JGK at Cottage Four. Very easy to reach me right there. And thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
both so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you,
And
John.
thank
Thank you for your
NJBIA.
transparency. Thank
Again,
you.
when this was a
I'll thank NJBIA too.
yeah, way back when I was working at New Jersey Reentry Corp, the first chamber, right, to stand up. The first business organization to stand up with us was NJBIA way back when. So you folks have always driven value to the business community across sectors, and you also have a really, really good heart.
Hey, I like
Yeah,
that.
I love it. I think it's actually it makes my heart smile to know that like this kind of work is going on and that
Absolutely.
there are second chances for people, because one decision, like sometimes it can even be an accident, and all of a sudden like your life is just on this completely other turn, and it makes me happy to know that people are out there working to make that a little bit easier for people,
I
and
like it.
I thank you so much for your work in that field.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you,
it
John.
prevents tomorrow's victims, and that's a
Yes.
really
Hmm.
important part,
Yeah.
right? Because a person with a job, person who has their addiction or their issues under control, they're working, they're not committing new crimes, new people are not getting victimized. That's like the critical public safety point of this from a societal standpoint, right? Is we stop tomorrow's victims when we do this right.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Thank you always, Randy, and Happy New Year to all of our listeners.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.